Okay, people. So today I am joined by James Villeneuve.
I would
Is
say Villeneuve. Just say Villeneuve. That's the easiest way to go. Villeneuve.
Villeneuve? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So James Villeneuve, the writer director of Pins and Needles. James, welcome to the podcast, man.
Uh,
Thank you for
hi.
joining us.
So I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being interested. I really appreciate it.
No worries at all. Like Pins and Needles, your feature directorial debut. Yo, how you feeling, man?
It's the best part is when people watch it and they enjoy it because then you realize you're not doing it for nothing. And when you do a low budget movie, you don't do it to get rich. You do it because you really want to, and you do it because you want to, you know, entertain people or catch their attention and have them feel emotions and be excited. And so that's the whole deal. So when somebody finally gets to watch it, that's the best. And you get, and they enjoy it, then that's the best part, because making it is really hard and can be unpleasant, even though it's fun too.
Mm. But like, is this experience slightly different for you? Because you had, like, I only just realized that you wrote Vicious Fun,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel that was a big hit when that dropped. Well, that was 2020, right? I think.
Yeah, that was received really well. Yeah, that was a very different kind of movie. And those guys, I don't know if you're familiar with the Black Fawn guys. So the people that produced and directed Chad and Cody over there at Black Fawn, they made Vicious Fun. And I have a good relationship with those guys, and they asked me to write an idea for them. And so that's how that came about. But yeah, that was a few years ago. And so that was a great experience. And yeah, it was so well received, like really well received. A lot of
Mm.
people really liked it. So I guess for people who don't know, it's a horror comedy. It's a bit of a satire, and it's just really fun. It's just about it takes place in the early '80s, so that cell phones can't ruin the movie. And it just it just pokes fun at a lot of the different archetypes of the horror villain, I guess is the simplest way to put it. I don't know if that's what you remember from it, Kevin.
Yeah, like the self-help group and just all of those kind of elements were just like, it was interesting. And yeah, I think setting a film in a time where like these other elements can't get in the way. There's too many times you watch a film and you're just like, why wouldn't they just look at Google Maps? Or like, why don't they just do this thing? Because it's an option, but they're just like, oh no, they've conveniently forgotten. So when you set it in a time when those things aren't even a factor, it lets the viewer really immerse themselves in what's going down.
Yeah, agreed. It frees you up to tell a story and not worry about the little details, which is,
Yeah.
so that's obviously something I had to worry about with Pins and Needles. So I kind of tried to take care of that in a way, because the worst thing that ever happened to horror movies was the cell phone. Easily, easily the worst thing that ever happened to horror films. So
But I think, right, because I think you because you have those films, and in any genre where you have people, and I don't know, man, like it's a weird thing to say, right? Because it's kind of like there's a barrier to entry to so many different things, right? But there's oftentimes a way to work around it and get in there somehow. So I think you have people telling stories who aren't the best storytellers. Now, they may be good at one element of the process, but the storytelling isn't their strong point. And so you have so many stories where they're just doing these stereotypical things, right? It feels kind of lazy. So the whole, oh, my phone doesn't work, like it's just an easy cop out kind of thing. So I think you now have this situation where people have to tell smarter stories, and we're definitely seeing that people use their, you know what I mean, real imagination to really bring the viewer in, and I think that's fantastic. So it's just like, it has created that thing where like you have to now be on your game, but it's kind of a good thing in a way, you know?
Well, if you can figure out if you can figure out the ways around a problem in a clever way, then it always makes things more interesting. And I mean, I guess, you know what, just for context, I guess I'll just sort of just briefly set up pins and needles for anybody who hasn't seen it. And then so this conversation makes a bit more sense in relation to what we're talking about. But pins and needles, a really sort of quick moving uh, thriller, I guess, with a few horror elements, but I would call it a thriller first and foremost. And
Mm,
it's about these three people who are together for whatever reason in the middle of nowhere, driving along in the road that is so remote it doesn't even have power lines, and they what seems like an accidental thing turns out to be a trap, and they get caught into a trap. And our hero escapes without being seen, but unfortunately she is diabetic and her insulin is back at the scene of the crime. So she has to actually go back and play a cat and mouse game with our villains to see if she can get her stuff and get out of there without, you know, well, being killed, really. So
mm.
so it's a fast moving 82-minute movie, and it doesn't really stop once it starts. So yeah, so the idea of a movie like that is like, why can't they just call the police with their cell phone? So that's the first thing I got out of the way. Or 10 minutes in, you know, they're so far out of anywhere, there's no cell phone towers. So I got rid
Mm.
of that problem, and then I was able to just tell my story the way I wanted to.
Yeah, which is a feasible thing though, because when you
Yeah.
go to some places in the country, yo, like you're just like, where's the service?
Yeah, and don't forget, we're in North America, we're such a huge landmass that it's not that hard to drive out somewhere and then eventually lose service. It's, you know, I live in Toronto, which is a massive city, but I can drive a few hours north after a while, and then stuff starts to get spotty. And then if you
Mm,
get into the really remote areas, you're out of luck unless you've got some sort of satellite phone. So
yeah, which is the thing. So yeah, no, like that whole setup, you believe it, right? You believe, and I'll just say, you say it's a fast-paced horror, like not horror, but like this story, this thriller. But I thought you did a really good friggin' job at the start of kind of leading the viewer in a certain direction. And then all of a sudden, we're over there. And you're just like, yo, what the fuck just happened here? And I thought that was great because we're going at a certain pace and then everything just picks up a notch. And you're just now locked in because you're just like, what's happening, right? Where does this thing just come from? What's going down here? And I just thought that was really well thought out, like with that whole beginning part of the film. How much thought went into it? Like when I say how much thought went into it, because obviously you thought about it, but like working out those beats to make it all kind of have the viewer just that locked in to kind of think what you're doing is one thing and then we're somewhere else.
well, the first thing, the most important thing I did that was that on purpose was I tried to make it seem like the characters were regular people that had their own lives and their own issues, and you could almost see that this first 5 minutes of this movie was just about them. If it wasn't a thriller, it could be about something else, and so you want to just set up a world that feels real. So you want
Mm,
real, normal people. You don't want to be too over the top. You just want it to seem like a regular everyday situation. And so if you set everything up like things are real and the characters are real, when something happens, you care about what happens to the characters, and you also it feels um it has more weight because this thing is kind of suddenly wrecked all these
Yeah.
regular lives. So that sort of creates some tension and some emotional weight. And so I was very conscious of that. And it was very important to get the first part right, because if you're watching the first 10 minutes and you're not into what you're seeing, then you're kind of, you don't care. So I wanted to make sure people cared. The other thing that's really important is, what I really like is, when a movie is like when I'm watching a movie and I don't really know what's going to happen next. So
Mm.
I feel like once I pull the rug out with this film, once at the 10 or 12-minute mark, when everything changes, at that point it's not so standard. Like, I don't think somebody watching be like, oh well, this is going to happen next. Oh, this is going to happen. Our hero's going to do this next. I tried
Yeah.
to actually keep everybody guessing, because if you're wondering what's going to happen next from scene to scene, then you're hooked. But if you're
Mm.
like, oh, I see where this is going, then you know what? You're like, you're bored and you're going to check your phone. So, um, once our hero Max, played by Chelsea Clark, once she is kind of locked into our thriller sort of like adventure, once she's locked in there and she can't get out unless she sort of, you know, makes it through the gauntlet, so to speak. You're kind of hooked because you really don't know how she's going to do it. She's not a big person. She can't physically fight her way out, so she's got to use her brains. And that was important to me. So I wanted people to feel like she was really smart and used her brains and was able to keep calm in such a terrible situation.
Yes, I think that is definitely the big thing, because I mean, in those first 10 minutes, you think it's going in a certain place, right? So this certain thing is probably going to happen, and then it's going to go all, and especially when the car issue happens, you're thinking, oh, here we go. So then when this different thing just like just the I can't even like it's sometimes it's hard talking about things without giving things away. But when the
We'll
plot,
say when the villains make their entrance, I think is what you're talking about. When we first
yeah,
see our villains.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because you don't really know, and especially me, because I've got terrible eyesight, right? So I couldn't even see the thing that's the thing, right? So
Oh, the
all
turn, right. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm kind of with Max, right? So I'm just like going, oh, what's happening? Oh my God, right? And then from that point onwards,
Yeah.
it is a case of where is this going? Right? Like, how are we going to navigate this whole situation? Because you don't even know how far this whole thing goes.
Right.
You
So
know,
what I
because
try to do,
remember,
what I
oh,
try to do is I try to just like, I think what's really important about to understand about the film, that doesn't give anything away, is I think if it works for you, because you might see it, might not like it, but if you see it and you like it, what probably works for you is that we as an audience are never out of sight of our hero once everything starts. If she doesn't know what's around the corner, we as an audience do not know what's around the corner. If she doesn't know what's
mm,
behind the door, you don't know what's behind the door. If she if she has to do something, we're with her every second of the way. That camera is glued to her, like, so close. And so I think um that's how the setup really works after the turn, because the way you described it, you're like with Max, and then you could like, oh my God, did that just happen? Like, we shot it in a way where you're basically almost sitting with Max, so you're not
mm,
quite sure what you see either. And I mean, you are, but you aren't. You're like, what? So we so that was my whole conceit, is to make sure that we are with Max. We are Max.
yeah,
We're strapped in with her, and we're with her to the end of the movie. So that was kind of, I think, what you're talking about, the way you described how you watch that scene where everything goes wrong. It was definitely meant to feel that way, where you're like, what? You almost want to lean into the screen and squint a bit. What happened? So that was definitely on purpose, because there's a million
okay,
ways to shoot that. Like, when I was shooting that on the day, the actors who were acting in that scene were like, why is the camera 200 yards away? I'm like, well, trust me, this is going to work. You just have to trust me. So yeah.
right, right, yeah. Sometimes those things, it's difficult because I can't see right? But I don't know what you would see in that same situation. So I'm like,
Right,
is
right.
everyone else seeing something different here? Like, is it just me that doesn't see what's going on? Right?
I
Or
think
is
you
everyone else
see.
seeing what's going
No,
on?
I think if you're I guess if you have typical eyesight, you would see what happened, but it was definitely not close up. And it's almost like you want to lean in and squint a bit to see, like, did that just, it's definitely, there's
Mm,
no close ups, there's nothing. You're supposed to feel like you're far away. And in the movie, you actually see our hero kind of lean forward a bit because she's trying to see
yeah.
what's happening. And so when you see what she's looking at, you are also leaning in a bit to see what is happening because it is far away. So yeah, that is definitely the effect that we're going for.
No, I think having Chelsea's perspective really does amp things up. Like there's moments where you're just like, yo, don't just open the door. Like, be a bit more cautious here. What are we doing? You know what I mean? And it's just whew, you are on the edge of your seat. And I legitimately jumped. I think there was like 2 or 3 occasions where I'm just
Right.
like, yo, you know what I mean? Like, because you don't expect a certain thing to happen, and then all of a sudden you're just like, oh shit,
Yeah,
which
there's
was
one there's
fantastic.
one huge jump scare we did when we had a screening. The whole theater jumped at that one. So I made sure to have one good jump scare, and I think I'm going to get you. I don't think, even though there's a jump scare, I don't think you're going to see it coming. So that's the whole point, and I think
Mm,
we accomplished that. So yeah,
aha.
yeah.
Like, what's the what's the kind of foundation to all of this? Like, what kind of films were you ingesting and enjoying, like
Oh, I
in
see.
your kind of birth to filmmaking? What are the things that kind of made you go, I want to do that? I want to tell stories.
Okay, so I mean, it happens, for everybody. I'm pretty sure this happens when you're a young kid, and for me, it was like when I was 4. And in my hometown of Cornwall, not Cornwall where you're from, but Cornwall where I'm from in Ontario, just on the banks of the St. Lawrence River, um, on the border with the U.S. It's a small town, a paper mill town, like a working class town of 30 or 40,000 people, and there was a cinema that would show Sunday matinees for kids. So on Sundays, the parents would drop their kids off at this theater,
Yeah.
and there'd be a double feature of like a lot of nothing was new. It was all older films. So everything from the Errol Flynn Robin Hood up to the Ray Harryhausen films of Sinbad the Sailor,
Oh my
um,
god. I love
the
those films.
original, yeah, the original Godzilla. Just the Blob. I saw. So my formative theater experiences when I was that age were probably like the Blob with Steve McQueen, which scared the bejesus out of the 4-year-old me or 5-year-old me. And I love that film to this day. And Star Wars, obviously, which would have been, not a Saturday matinee, but obviously that was a big one. And the Harryhausen films were huge for me, the Sinbad movies in particular. And so though, and the Godzilla films, and so when you're 5 and 6 and you're in a theater and you're enjoying that stuff. Journey to the Center of the Earth was another good
Mm,
one, the
yeah.
original, and yeah, so love those movies. And so more, I think, than the average kid in my class, let's say, or the kid in the theater, I was very obsessed, and I get little books about how they made them, and was so excited. I remember I had a film, a book about the making of. It was I would get little magazines about the making of Return of the Jedi or whatever, like just little things that
Yeah.
the making of Jaws, different. I would just eat that stuff up, and so even in the 6th grade, I don't know what the equivalent is here or where you are, but I would say when I was like 11 and 12, I thought, yeah, I want to make movies. My parents were very supportive and got me a little camcorder, and so I ended up going to school for it after high school and to a university, and just moved to Toronto, and gradually learned how to edit, and then music videos and commercials and corporate videos, anything really. And And so that's how my journey started. I would say just that the matinee, the Port Cinema in Cornwall, Ontario is the reason I'm here.
Uh,
Actually, my
uh,
parents dropping me off at the Port Cinema and I would spot is the reason I'm here. So let's give credit where credit is due.
mm. Nah, that's great, man. Like, there's yeah, those Harry Hassel. I can never say his name properly.
Ray Harryhausen.
Ray Harry, yes. I always struggle with that name. I don't even know why. But I loved those films were so incredible. I was hypnotized by those things, right? Jason and the Argonauts,
Yep,
Sinbad, the Eye of the Tiger, the Seven Voids of like just all of those. The Clash of the Titans.
yep.
I
They were
love.
very colorful. Like the creature designs were wonderful, and what I really liked about those films is the sense of anticipation. Like one of my favorite
Mm,
parts in any of the Sinbad movies is where they're in a cave, and you can hear this monster and coming from the cave. You don't know what it's going to look like, you know what it's going to sound like, but it's
yeah.
coming. And so those moments were, just the anticipation of seeing the next creature was always tops for me.
Oh man, there was a this morning show, this morning breakfast show, which it was odd that they had a feature on this, but they had a feature on Jason and the Argonauts and the whole skeleton part, right? And they were like, they talked to, I can't even remember who they talked to, but they were talking about it and how they made that bit. And it's just like, and we moved them and then we take a shot, then we move them again. And you're just like, wait, so it takes that lot just to get a few set. That's incredible. And it just blew my mind. Just like,
Well, when I
just
was a
hearing
kid,
that.
I mean, I still have this book, but when I was a kid at a flea market, I got a book of the making of the original King Kong, which was like gold to me. I can't tell you how excited I was to have that book. And I don't know, I was probably 11 when I got that book, and so I read it cover to cover, and there was a lot of wonderful photographs of guys like working on the stop motion animation bit by bit. And I remember reading this thing where so for the original King Kong, they do the dinosaur fight, let's say, and they had like little bonsai trees and little real plants in the background, right? It was just easier to use real plants. And they
Mm,
had to throw away a take because they realized when they watched the footage that it took them like 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, how many, a week or 2 weeks to do this sequence. And in behind the dinosaurs, a flower had bloomed because it had
mm.
taken so long. The plant grew and then started a flower and then it opened up. So it looked wrong. So they had to do it over again, work 2 weeks over just because they didn't realize something had grown in the background. So that's how
Oh.
long it takes. The plants were growing in the scene. So
Oh man, yeah, those films were so good, and that really, yeah, because I think I loved like mythology and folklore,
yep.
just all of those, any story like the Arabian Nights. There was this series called The Storyteller. John Hurt would like he'd be this old kind of traveler, and it would start off him and his wagon with his big sheep kind of dog, and he'd start a fire and he'd be like, so I've got a story to tell you. And then you get into this whole story, which was like crazy, and they did all of these different things. And so it's just watching all of these as a kid really just got, I think, helped fuel my love of like storytelling, you know?
Was the John Hurt or sorry, John, the that series was an anthology series.
Yeah,
So like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
There was 2 seasons. So there was season 1, the I forget all the stories on season 1, but season 2 was the Arabian Nights and just all of those stories.
right. That's
But
cool.
yeah, it was so good, but they didn't do any more. But it was just
Mm.
fantastic. All of those kind of things. Like, was there a certain genre that you kind of gravitated to?
Well, that's changed as I've gotten to see more films. And obviously when I was a kid, it was just the exciting, the sci-fi and the fantasy films when I was a child. And then then when you're like 14 or 15 and you see Die Hard, you get in action movies, and you want to see all the action movies, and then as you get a bit older, you suddenly like I think I worked at a video store in my teens, and then I started to branch out and see films that you know, like they're sitting there on the shelf. So they'll be like, "Oh, what's this?" And I'll just try
Yeah.
this. And so that's actually after the port cinema. The video store was a big one for me because I could just bring stuff home for free. And so I saw stuff like the original Manchurian Candidate, and I would or Lawrence of Arabia, which to this day is still one of my favorite movies. And I eventually managed to see in a theater 3 times. But my first viewing was a letterbox VHS. So
Mm.
it looks, just trust me, it looks better on the screen. And
Yeah.
so I expanded my, I think Wim Wenders' Wings of Desire, and just different films that sort of showed me, oh yeah, no, it's not just all dinosaurs and gunfights. It can be a lot of different things, and so yeah, the video store really opened my eyes to different things. And I remember being excited to rent Doctor Strangelove, and because I really liked Peter Sellers in the Pink Panther movies, and then to see that film, which is a Kubrick masterpiece, that sort of wakes you up to how good movies can be. I remember just loving it so much when I saw it.
Mm.
So yeah, the video store kind of opened me up, and then once you get to film school, then you really start watching stuff that you wouldn't have in Cornwall. I wouldn't have had access to. So 400 Blows was one of my favorite films that I saw in film school, and I love it to this day. And just shows you that the whole world was doing things. It's not just English language that was making great movies. So that really helped a lot. And as an adult, I've more challenging, more interesting films like Tokyo Story by Ozu. And so I try to like mix things up, and I still love a good sci-fi fantasy like Denis Villeneuve, my namesake. He's the best sci-fi fantasy guy going, as far as I'm concerned, by a long shot. And but today's landscape being what it is, you can get any kind of film, whatever your mood is, anytime. So there's a filmmaker out there for everybody whenever they want it.
That is very true. Like, what did you think when you first heard Villeneuve had been picked to do Dune?
Well, it's funny. Like as a kid, I read a lot of science fiction books, but Dune, for whatever reason, I'd never read, so I didn't have a connection to it other than like I have to be honest. I mean, I always liked the David Lynch movie. Some people are not huge with the David Lynch's Dune, but I always thought it was great. And but I love Denis Villeneuve. He's such a versatile filmmaker, and I don't know if you've ever seen Enemy, but it's one of my favorite movies. And it's one of his, I would say maybe lesser known films, but it's so good. So I was excited, and the thing about um the thing that makes him so great in terms of big uh high budget special effects movies is that he and his cinematographers and visual effects people work together in a way that makes sure that when you're watching the film, you're not excited about the effects, you're just accepting that they're there, which is a huge
Mm.
difference. Because I remember seeing his Blade Runner, which I really really loved, and
Mm.
at the theater, and thinking to myself halfway through, oh geez, I didn't even notice that these are special effects. Like that's how good his eye is, and that's how well he works with his crews, is that they shoot things in a way where you forget that you're supposed to be impressed, and you're just in the world, and that's what makes him so special. And it's one of a handful of movies that I've watched where I'm like, I don't see any effects, everything looks so real. Because I can't say that about Marvel movies or whatever. They're fine, and I've enjoyed some of them, but I always feel like I'm kind of watching, sometimes it feels like you're kind of watching a cartoon a little bit. Whereas when you're watching Dune, you just absolutely unequivocally believe what you're seeing, and it's so impressive for something that alien to seem so just real. And aside from the fact that we're just ignoring the fact that he tells a good story, and he gets tone right, and he takes it just seriously enough that you're into it, but it's not like a slog, and he works as a great actor. So like all of that, the effects are great and everything, but then on the other hand, if the acting and the pacing sucked, well, you wouldn't care. So he somehow manages to get both right, which is kind of a miracle, I think.
Yeah, no, I think with June, right, it's this sci-fi setting, but then you have this kind of look that kind of makes it feel a little Hamlet kind of
It's
thing. You know what I
Shakespearean.
mean?
Yeah, it's fully Shakespearean.
Yeah,
The story, I mean, the story is obviously very Shakespearean,
yeah,
like kings and princes and duplicitous families working against other families. And so yeah, and he leans into that. But the other thing that I think he gets right that a lot of filmmakers maybe wouldn't get quite as right is his sense of scale is incredible.
oh my
Like
God. Yeah.
like a film, as an example, like, okay, I'm not, I'm not trash talking, but when I saw Pacific Rim, I was a little disappointed with it. And the reason I was disappointed with it is it felt like it was shot the same way you'd shoot a film if there were guys in suits knocking over wooden buildings. And I just felt like
Mm,
there's no sense of scale. It just looked like big bar fights in a little
yeah.
city, right? Whereas um, when you see Dune or even Gareth Evans' Godzilla movie, there's such a sense of scale. Like they somehow managed to make you feel how huge these things are, and it makes it seem much more impressive. And so when they get out of those ships, when they land on Dune,
Yeah.
you get a sense of how big this procession is, in a way that most films don't. Like there's only a few. I guess when the opening shot of Star Wars, the little ship goes by, and then the really big ship goes over the camera, and you get a sense of scale. And not many films really do that well, I think, filmmakers. So yeah, I
No,
think
that
that's something to note.
yeah, that was the one of the big crazy things. It was just like you have the Atreides land on Arrakis, and then the cameras with them, and then it kind of pans out, and you just see this massive wasteland and just all the ceremony and the bagpipes and everything, and you just like are just blown away by everything. It was just handled so like he did it so well. But I think it's when I saw Arrival, I watched Arrival and I was just like, okay, I've got faith he's gonna do a great job with you, you
Yeah, I
know?
mean, Arrival's, I mean, I think my favorite of his is Enemy, but Arrival is such a wonderful movie. I could watch that over again for sure, over and over again. And yeah, he gets a sense of scale right, and but none of that matters unless you like the story, and he just
Yes.
tells a good story.
Oh, for sure. You just believed in it all. You bought the characters, these, and I think especially with the whole thing with Paul coming to the set, and you've got Channy and the young, the young Fremen, and
Yes.
they're just kind of like going, no, why are we doing this? And the old Fremen are like, yes, this is the legacy. Just that dynamic, you just think that makes so much sense. Yeah,
Well,
that's great.
I think it's a film of its time, Dune, the new Dune compared to the old film, which
Mm,
I really like. But the old film begins with a little monologue about what spice is and how valuable it
yeah.
is. And I think so that's what that film, it's like the MacGuffin for the science fiction story. Whereas the new Dune begins with a monologue about how the indigenous people of Dune, it's said from their perspective about what the spice is and what it means to them. And I can't remember the exact but I was like, oh, now I get, like, this film is now showing you that, okay, this is about colonialism. This is about the point of view of the people who are being oppressed because this thing is a valuable. It doesn't matter that it's a MacGuffin, a thing that's starting a story. What matters is how it's affecting the indigenous people of that planet, which is, the story of Earth and colonialism and how different populations are affected by other rich countries' pursuit of their resources. And so, he took this story, which was just a story about, well, I mean, it could have been just a story about, uh, you know, families arguing, and now it's a story about what is, colonialism. And again, that's why he's so good, because he and the writers decided that we're going to go deeper.
Mm. Well, the book is deep. Like
I
two of my
believe it. I
favorite,
believe it. It's so thick. I hope
yeah.
so. I haven't read it.
But two of my favorite books are Dune, Lord of the Rings. And I think the
Mhm.
interesting thing about those books are you had Frank Herbert, who was interested in like geology, right? And the transformation of something into something else. And Tolkien was interested in language. So he wrote the whole Elven language and everything like that. And so they wanted those two components to be backbones of their stories. And I think that's the real fascinating thing about those books and those stories that kind of really set them apart from everything else, you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, when you're making a movie, you have to remember you can't write down everybody's thoughts, and you don't want to spend most of the film doing VO, so you have to just take certain things from that book and focus in ways that sort of make sense for a movie. So they managed to pull out a lot of more depth than the first film had, I think.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, I could talk about this for days, fam. But like the interesting thing is, right? So you went to the cinema, you worked at the video store. So you've got this foundation now. You've ingested so much. And so you decide, I want to make this a career. I want to go into this thing, right? Did you have an idea of what you want? Because you've been an actor, an editor,
Oh,
you've
right, I
written,
see.
you've directed. So what was like
Oh,
the
it had to be director. It was always director. It was always director. That's what I wanted to do as a kid because, when I had the video camera, I would tell all my friends what to do. Like, there's a scene we're doing. This is how you're going to, you stand there, you do this, and you say this. And, so and then I would take it home, and I would do VCR to camcorder editing with it and put it together. And so it was always directing. But when I was, as a young guy, it seemed kind of something that wasn't doable. So I thought to myself, well, even if I become an editor, that would be neat.
Mm,
So when I got through film school, I just was lucky enough. My feature or my thesis film caught the eye of somebody who was a successful music video director in Toronto, and they just gave me their card and said, "Yeah, I liked your movie. You should come by and check things out." And I did. And this wonderful person named Warren Sonoda, who is the um, president of the Directors Guild of Canada now. So he
oh,
really, you know, became successful. He just literally took me. I shadowed him on a music video shoot. Then he sat me down in front of an edit suite, and he stood off to the side, said, "Okay, you press that button to make an edit. You press that button to look at the footage. He literally showed me from scratch how to use an Avid, and then I started editing music videos. And so I entered the industry as an editor. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but I edited Pins and Needles as well.
mm.
So I edit all of my own commercials, and I'd say like 90 to 95% of the stuff that I direct, just as a working director, commercials and corporate stuff or my movie or whatever, I also edit. So that was a skill set that I started my career with, and it served me well.
Yeah, I really do feel there's, when you talk to, directors that also edit, like it kind of, you get this different component to things, right? It's like this new super weapon because you now understand what the next step is,
Well,
right?
in a low budget environment, especially on my film, I only had 12 days to shoot it, which I'm not sure if you're aware, but that's just
Yes.
mental.
Yeah.
So you don't have time to experiment, and you don't have time to make a decision on set. So like further than just like going to the next shot. So since I'm an editor, I was able to shoot something like let's say an angle and be like, oh, if I just get this one more angle, I know we're done because I can cut to this part. And
Mm.
so that's really because I can edit. That is what got us through the shoot. If I didn't know how to edit, I don't know how I would have gotten through a schedule that fast because it was two takes, run to the next setup, two takes, run to the next setup. We didn't have a lot of time to You know, there's a part in the film where somebody breaks glass, and you know, the crew is ready to do that twice. But when I got the first take, and you know, the reset would have been another 20 minutes. And you know, when I got the first take, I was like, I was like, you know, that worked. I know I can use that. I know I can use it. Moving on. We don't need safety, like, because I knew how I was going to edit the shot.
Mm,
So that is a superpower. It's a weapon in your battle against time. For me, anyway. That's how I
yeah.
think.
No, for sure. Like, was it 12 days because of budget, because of actor
Yeah.
schedules?
All of the above. It's mostly budget. I mean, it was not a high budget film, but you know, because I shot a lot of commercials, and you know, my shooter had shot a lot of the commercials for me, we knew how to make something look good with not a lot of money or resources. So I don't think it, like, I think when you're watching, I don't think it looks too low budget. Like, I actually think it looks pretty good. And
Mm,
I've had like people in the industry, like a, you know, TV showrunner told me, who does a successful show here in North America. He was, you know, he guessed that the budget was twice or three times what it actually was based on how it looked. So, you know, again, that was just like, you know, the experience of knowing where to put the camera and moving on to the next shot as fast as you can, but also knowing how to make stuff look good without a lot of time, which is what you have to do in commercials.
oh man, like watching the film, yeah, you don't look at it and go, ah, man, it's good for the small budget it had,
Yeah.
right? You just look at it and think, this is a great film. Like, there's all the elements work, right? Your cast is fantastic, right? The score helps build that tension without being too, oh, this is a scary moment. This is a, you know what I mean? It just ramps things up, right? Just the way you use the camera to bring people in, to keep you at a distance, to kind of what's around it. This all of that, all of those elements work so well. So you don't, there's no moment you're watching this film thinking it's like this small time little thing.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad, because it was hard to make it look that. So all that effort paid off, is all I have to say. We didn't want people to watch it and think, "Oh, nice try for like for the budget." You know, we didn't
No,
want to.
no.
Yeah,
Like you're not even watching this thinking, good job for a first film, right? It
yeah. Well, I
it
hope
does
not.
feel like it's you're a
Yeah.
seasoned, you know what I mean, filmmaker.
Well, I mean, I spent 12 days and then another pickup day or whatever, directing it, or a couple of days and so that's whatever, let's say 14 days in total work as a director. But I had worked as a director on set for years, and probably three, or maybe I've had 300 or 400 days on set as a director. It just wasn't for a feature. So I, you know,
Mm.
it wasn't like I didn't know what to do. And that's what helped. Like, if young me, who had never directed a film before, tried to direct that movie, it would have been a problem. But because you know, you don't understand how long
Yeah.
things take, and with experience you understand how long things take. And that's, I mean, it works for the concept, but we shot it, i would say I would say 95% of the shots in this movie are handheld. And one of the reasons, uh aside from that, it works for the concept because it had to work for the concept, but it's also just we didn't have time to set up a dolly or to set up a tripod. We just went, okay, you know, like, so the camera, Bob Light, the DOP, he stripped down the camera so it was as light as possible. Had two handles, one on either side, and then he had this backpack that had the batteries in it and whatever else, so that way the camera could be extra light. And then he could just basically carry it all day, you know. And he worked out for a couple months beforehand to make sure he was in shape so he wouldn't kill himself for the movie. So yeah, a lot of like, that was again a choice that creatively worked, but also just had to. There's no other way. There was no other way to get the movie done.
Mm. But I think the big thing, right, which, you know, I think you're downplaying here, James. Yes, you know, you've done the music videos, you've done the shorts, the commercials, just all the other stuff. You've done that. That's for real. But it's making that transition, right? It's being ready for like that big stage. Like, how many times have people got the opportunity and it's just not worked out, right? You see people choke, right? But you, oh my God, I'm just
You know what? It
flipping.
helped. It helped to work. It helped to work with the DOP that I was familiar with. It also helped that if you know what everybody in the film crew does, then when you get on set, you're not lost. And like
Mm,
that helps you. So even though it was a step for me that I hadn't done before, like day to day, like actually, if you think about it, I've spent way more money per day on commercials than I did on this movie. Like I've worked with way bigger crews for a
yeah.
day. So like, and I've also worked with really tiny crews. The point is, I think what matters most is that you have to, you have a good crew and you trust them, and you also know what everybody does, and you know what you need to ask for, and you have a good AD who's working with you. My AD was great. So all of those things, like you don't make a movie alone. So my AD and my shooter I could trust, and those are the main. And then the other people we had, like Art was really excited about the idea and really helpful, and was part of the team. And I try to like be positive and make sure everybody's excited to be there and everybody's respected, so that makes people want to work as well. So it's not like, it honestly isn't that different. Like it was a medium-sized crew for me. It's just that it was 12 days in a row and it was a movie, like, so I wasn't really nervous about that. I was more just, I just wanted to make sure we got our days properly.
Yeah. 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 But yeah, no, you did a great job, you know. Is
Thank
does
you.
it just kind of reminds me of when, for New England, when Drew Bledsoe, who was doing such a great job, got injured, and then in steps a young Tom Brady, and
Well, I'm
that
going to
was
stop you right there. I'm going to stop right there. I am not the young Tom Brady of filmmaking, but I am lucky enough to like have made a movie, and I hope to make another one in the near future. But I think what you mean is that the person was prepped and ready to go, and so yes, I was prepped. And the thing about filmmaking, if I could go back in time and start over, there's two choices I would make. One would I would have started, maybe not, maybe editing, but I maybe would have tried special effects instead. And the reason being is that would have enabled me to do some short films to get a lot of attention. Like
mm,
that's a thing that's happened. Little sci-fi short films get made into movies a lot easier than other stuff, or horror or whatever. The other thing is to understand more you how you navigate the industry to get money, because like, if I was independently wealthy, I could just pay for my own movie. Who cares? But I can't. So I need people to give me money, and that's a whole skill, and I don't understand it. And I wish I did. And that's why a producer is able to make multiple movies is like so special. Like, how do they do that? How do they figure that out? How do they know all those details? It's not how my brain works. So, you know, that's those are two things you don't really, there's a couple things you don't really think about if you're starting out.
mm. It is a tricky. Finance is definitely a tricky element of it all.
It's the
Yeah.
trickiest. It's the hardest because like it was hard work. Don't get me wrong. It was hard work, but like as far as I'm concerned, it's way harder to figure out how to get money for pins and needles than it would be to like make it, you know?
Mm,
I mean, from my perspective, that's just because I don't have that skill set. So
yeah. But I think once you put something out that really holds up, that's going to be helpful, you
yeah,
know?
I hope so. I mean, there's no monolithic culture anymore. We don't, like when I was young, and when I say young, I mean even like in my 20s, uh you could like look at a website or a newspaper or anything, and see all the movies that were coming out, and you kind of had an idea of what was coming out. Now there are like TV shows that are fantastic I've never heard of. There's
Yeah.
movies coming out that you know that I didn't necessarily, I'm lucky to have heard of. Like, what if I didn't hear about this movie? How, because the churn is so fast.
Mm,
So yeah, I think it's definitely, so this film worked out, I guess, for me, but it's also like it's one of a million movies being released within the 2 week window. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
so I have to, realistically, I also have to understand it is maybe a calling card, but also, I'm definitely not going to get stopped on the street for this either. And so you just want to keep in mind that you do it because you love it. Because you know, like I said, if you do a low budget film, you're not getting rich and you're not getting famous. So what are you doing it for? You're doing it for because you want to show people some fun stuff, and that's what I did. And the people who've seen it seem to enjoy it, and overall the reviews seem pretty okay. And so yeah, that's what you do it for in the end, is to show something to people you don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if you're trying to do something to, you know, get wealthy, that can often be a stumbling block. But when you do it
Yeah.
the
If you do things
love,
for the wrong, yeah, if you do things for the wrong reason, are you even good at what you're doing? Like,
mm,
are you even excited about it? Like, so, you know, yeah, you have to like, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, there's a balance, right? Because I work on a lot of stuff that I don't necessarily care about for money, but I still work hard on them. But,
yeah,
you know, uh I make sure to do stuff that I do care about. And that's sadly that's the stuff that doesn't pay so well. So just is the way it is. I mean, you know, I'm pretty sure this podcast can get you rich. You have a regular job as well, I'm guessing. So, you know,
yeah.
it's just that
That's a
doesn't
bit.
mean you don't want to do it. So
No, but it's I think it's that thing, right? That the paid thing you might not always love, right? There's definitely been
yeah,
certain gigs that were just fantastic, and I work with
yeah,
fantastic people, but
yeah,
that's not all the time. But when you have something that you're really passionate about and you love doing,
yeah,
it's like, you know, it's that counterbalance, right? So everything else is fine because all right, on tomorrow I've got I'm gonna have a great conversation with this person, or I'm
right.
trying to set something up to talk to this other person, and I've got someone sent me these films. Oh, that's awesome. I'm covering this festival. So it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah.
you have those things like just to keep you energized for life, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can't say that enough. If you work a job and you're not fond of it, but maybe you find something in your personal life that you are fond of, that you are excited about, because, you know, otherwise, if you're not excited about anything, it's a little bit of a bleak existence, I think. So
Yeah.
you want to be, maybe it's just, honestly, maybe it's just following a sports team, maybe it's just playing the guitar, maybe it's just, I don't know,
Mm.
you like cooking, but you know, most people, you know, really should have a thing that they enjoy. It doesn't have to be your career. Just, you know, everybody needs an outlet, I think.
Oh, for sure. It's so important, right?
Yeah,
It's just so important to have something that gives you passion, you know? I mean,
agreed.
it's one thing. You can have several things that give you passion, you know what I mean? But just have something, you know what I mean? I mean, that's so important, right?
I Yeah, agreed. And that's the thing. Like, if you do something and you love it, but then you stop loving it, find something else. Like, don't force it,
Yes.
you know. And but in my case, I still really enjoy what I do, and even like, even some of the paying stuff is fun. You know what I'm saying? I'm not even trashing it. Like, you know, it's just that obviously there's levels of fun, and you want to be at the top. But I mean, like, you know, I did a travel job recently for a brand, and we went to a few different places in Canada, and I had a great time traveling with a couple of friends I work with, and we ate at great restaurants and met some cool people, and also worked. So, you know, what's to complain about? Like, that's a great. I'd much rather do that than be in an office. So that's just my personal preference. And so I figured out a way where I could live that kind of life, and that makes me happy. And I think that's why I went through all the trouble to make pins and needles, because it, you know, problem solving is fun. It makes me
Mm,
happy.
mm. Oh man, one of the funniest times for work I had in the corporate world was we did a congress in Vancouver. And man, that was like we were there for I think we were there for like 5 days,
Wow,
and
that's great.
it was early, like we were up at like I was up at 5 in the morning, you know what I mean, to get to the conference center for 6. We left the conference center, I think like 8 at night,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, just getting like finishing, like packing things up, getting ready for the next day, and then it's rinse and repeat for like 4 days straight, you know what I mean? But then in the evenings we went out and had some of the best crab and friggin'
You're right on the
just
ocean there.
food
Yeah,
was so good. It was insane. But that was just an awesome time. Hung out like with the crew that I work with are still they're friends for life. You know what I mean? So it was
yeah.
just a great like situation, you know?
And that
But
was
that
for money. That was your money
yeah.
job, but it didn't have to feel that way. It felt more than that, right? So that's the
Mm.
idea. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly, which is awesome. But I think when you truly love something, I think it definitely shows, right? It definitely shows in the product. And a big thing about pins and needles that I really did like was when we see Max running around and everything like that, like you can see she's looking more disheveled. You know what I mean? You show her looking sweaty and her clothes looking
Yeah.
grimier and grimier.
Right.
And that little detail right there, I love that. Because there's so many times, and you'll watch a film, and people could be in the desert, but their clothes, there's no dirt or anything on their
Right.
clothes. And you're just
Right.
like, wait, they're in 100-degree weather. They're not sweating a beat, right? Their
Yeah.
clothes look fresh to death. Hair ain't out of place. What's
Yeah.
going on here? You know
I
what I
think
mean?
that was important for us because there's not a lot of dialogue in a lot of the movie. We have to tell the story with visuals, and because she is in a race against time to get her insulin, we need to make sure that the audience knows she's not feeling well. Like she's not going to say out loud, "I don't feel well." So you got to make sure that
Yes.
you want to make sure that you gradually. So I'm glad you noticed. And what's funny about that is that we didn't always have time to do that. So if you really like start and you pause the film at various points and really compare notes, you'd be like, wait a minute, she was sweaty there, she was sweaty there, she wasn't sweaty there, but then she's sweaty again. How did that happen? That's just because like we're like, gotta go, gotta go, gotta go. The
Yeah.
makeup's like, nope. I'm like, no, just we have to go. And then so we would just go. And so it was kind of like that. But we just got enough of it in there so that you noticed. So I'm glad you noticed.
Yeah, no, it speaks. I think it speaks volumes with those little things. Like there's a bit when she's sitting on the bed, and then you just see her hand, right? And you'd
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, that's nice," right?
Yeah.
Because it's showing like the effect of not having the insulin, and as you
Right.
say,
You're talking about the scene where you see her hand is shaking and she's
yes,
having a moment. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we were like, I mean, that's film 101. You show, don't tell. And so we showed, we didn't tell.
mm,
That's and that makes it better. And I think that's actually something to point out to the viewers. Like as a film, there are good stretches of this movie without dialogue. We tell a story with visuals, and some of my favorite movies do that. And that's part of what I wanted to do with this movie was tell stories just using the camera, and so with minimal dialogue in some cases. Not to say that there isn't a story. There's definitely a subplot you can follow. There's lots of dialogue. Our villains are chatty, um, but there are a lot of sequences that are just told with shots, and that's kind of like that was important to me. So the screenplay is a lot of direction, or not, sorry, a lot of action, but not a lot of dialogue. You
yeah,
turn page after page and you don't see any character's name yet, so that was but that's a lot of fun.
mm, yeah. I mean, with that, right? How much thought did you put into the makeup of the house?
Oh,
Because
okay,
I
that's a
like
good question.
okay, yeah,
Yeah, I
because
was gonna
the
say the
judges
house is a
report
character. The
really
house is a
bad.
character, right?
Yeah,
Like, yeah. What did you okay when you first saw it in the movie? It's introduced in a very specific way. What did you think when you saw it? Like I guess were you expecting to see it? Like, how did it grab you?
it definitely is just like pow, right? Because you're going down this dusty road, and you have this friggin' you know what I mean, new age kind of like sci-fi house. Like it's kind of like the house in Ex Machina, and you're just
A
like,
little bit, yeah.
what is this? Like,
Right.
what's going on here? And so you're kind of like convenient, right?
then
That's
then
where,
it's not quite, it's not quite how it
yeah.
turns out in the end. But yeah, so the house we wanted to, okay, the house is a very specific choice. And the reason being, and I think when you see the film, you'll understand from the villains that we have, we didn't feel, I didn't want to make a movie that where it's like poor people who live in remote areas are the villain, because they're
Mm,
nothing to be afraid of if, from somebody who's poor, or like from somebody who like lives in the small town or lives in the middle of nowhere. Those aren't the people that I'm afraid of. So we thought, like, let's think this through. Like, let's have something that nobody expects. Nobody expects a state of the art brutalist, you know mansion, modernist mansion in the middle of, like, normally that would be like a shack, or be like Texas Chainsaw Massacre house, or be like the house from Psycho.
yeah.
But when you see this thing, you're like, I like to think the viewer, when they see it, they'll be like, Well, that's not what I expected at all. What is happening here?" And so that gets you off center. And then we found, when we scouted it, it was a strange house. It was a little impersonal. And so, the villains are strange, and we just thought, yeah, like, they've got all that money to build a place, but I mean, it definitely doesn't feel homey. If you see, if you're watching the movie, it doesn't feel so homey. So, like, it just all kind of worked, I guess. For us, it was a character. It was like you're inside the villains' minds. It's big, impersonal, modern, and a little scary. That was the idea. So, um,
But I thought it worked perfectly for our villains.
yeah,
There's, especially when we had that speech towards the end, which I thought was great, right? I thought it was
right.
because it speaks volumes, right? Because it's just like, I make a lot of money. I think because it's not like you have these villains who are like these maniacal people and like, right? It's just like, I worked hard, I made money, I deserve this shit.
Yeah, they're
And
entitled. They're entitled
yeah,
for sure.
and so like that kind of house and the contrast of these white walls and big windows to then the other thing is
Yeah.
like so drastic. It's kind of perfect, you know?
Yeah, yeah. We wanted it to, again, well, that's another point. So we wanted, once you're in the house, there's a certain room, that every a certain area that every horror film has, and we thought, well, let's change it up. It's not going to be like you think it is. So once you see, that area, you're like, oh, that is not what I expected. And again, we just wanted to throw people off and make it interesting. And we had an idea for what these villains would be like. And um, so yeah, it's all about. I mean, ultimately, like, I wrote it up. I wrote it a few years ago. It took a while to get the film made. And when I wrote it, those villains came off as satirical, and now they just come off as like, yes, of course, that's what a rich person from Silicon Valley's like, like satire
Yeah.
is dead at this point. Like, I don't know how the Onion is doing it. They're still doing it, but like, it is, like, by the time this film got made, there's literally like analogs to the villains in the movie. Whereas before, I just like Mason, oh, this is kind of funny, and I'm like, yeah, actually, no, there's people exactly like this. Like, so it actually kind of, the film, the villains and their house really makes sense, because a lot of the techno fascist, billionaire jerkos, from Silicon Valley, everything they work towards now is just keeping normal people away from them.
Mm.
Like the idea, this absurd push for this junk AI shit is all about them not having to, like, it's like, we're going to make AI so it reads me my emails and it does all the stuff and organizes my birthday parties, so I don't have to talk to people. Like, it is just so anti-human, anti-socialization. It's just garbage, and that's where their mindset is. So these people, they use all these resources to put themselves out in the middle of nowhere, and they're in their own stupid little bubble, and they have this stupid idea that I'm sure doesn't work, but like, they think they're so smart because they cheated their way to getting rich, like, it's, so I mean, it was a little bit satirical. Now it's just kind of like ripped from the pages of the news at this point. So just FYI for anybody watching, I thought I was being clever. I, I wasn't really. Apparently, I just was like writing real life.
Hey, no, but these you buy it though, right? You
Yeah,
buy the characters and the motivations and the things that are driving everyone, and that is perfect for the viewer,
yeah,
because you are just with this film from beginning to the end, right? Because the reason Max leaves the dig, the thing at the
yeah,
start, you're not even sure if that's going to be a big thing, right?
yeah.
So you're just watching it. You're like, okay, where are we going? What's going to
Yeah, I
happen?
try to throw in a few different things that other thrillers might be the start. Oh, this might be the
Mm,
start of the thriller. This might be the start of the thriller. Like I throw a bunch of things in. I'm really trying to keep you on your toes. And I'm sure when you're watching, you're thinking, oh, that person, that that's coming back, or this is going to come out, or that, like I just I wanted everybody to be off center and off balance while they're watching. That was the idea.
yeah. Well, you did a great job with that, man. You
Oh, thanks so
definitely
much.
did a really good job. I
Thank
was
you.
just, man, like, this cast were fantastic.
Yep.
How like how was that process? And were they the people, like, when you were writing these characters,
I
did
didn't
you
write
have
with anybody in mind. No, I had nobody in
right?
mind, and for a okay, so casting is different for different budget levels. If you
Yes.
have a decent budget level, you can really take a while, and even have like live auditions and stuff and do different things. Whereas with a film as with as little money as ours, we were only able to do videotape auditions and then maybe check a couple references to see how the person and what they're like, and but or just make a direct offer to somebody in that case. And so the casting process was not this like romantic thing of me like meeting with dozens of people, and it was just like we found somebody really cool, and as soon as you find somebody cool, you're like, that's the person. Like, I get it, they get it, let's just do it. So
Mm,
the casting did not, what was a very short process, but we were lucky enough to get Chelsea and Kate and Ryan for the villains, and good supporting cast. Like, it all just fell together. We got really lucky because if we hadn't have gotten lucky, film wouldn't be as good. So everybody has their moment to shine in the film. I think everybody has a couple of scenes where it just they do really great work.
yeah.
Um and for something as low budget as this, you need actors who are good, who don't need five takes. They don't need five, like if we had actors who didn't know how to hit their mark as well as being good actors, we would have been in trouble.
Mm,
Like, let's say, Chelsea has a great performance, but what if she didn't know how to hit her mark? We would have fallen behind because it was like handheld, shallow focus. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so she technically had to be a good actor as well as being just like a good actor, if you understand what I'm saying by that.
yeah.
There's so yeah, we were really lucky by getting people who are both, you know.
Yeah, no, the casts were great. Okay, so there was just this openness when you were like, because sometimes people are like, oh yeah, the person has to be of this age, or I want a blonde person or a bald person, or what I mean. You were just like,
Oh, I
if
see. Well, no, actually, okay, so I had no issue. I had no preconceived notions of who the Max was, and other than just she's a woman, and but for the villains, they had to be of a certain age and they had to be white. The villains have to be white because the kind of characters I've turned them into can only be white. So because
right,
they're again modeled after like the entitled sort of oligarchy class in
yeah,
North America here. So so that was the only sort of preconceived. And then like within a certain age range, the idea is that they were old enough that they had gotten rich, but not too old that they weren't still technically savvy, I guess.
yeah.
So yeah, so that was like, those were my only real sort of uh preconceived notions for the casting.
Okay,
Yeah, and also Chelsea had to be, Chelsea couldn't be 6 feet tall. you know, we needed somebody who is
Mm.
you know, is like petite, so that when she stands next to the villains, they seem intimidating, right? Like we needed to make sure that we needed to make sure that the viewer knew that she couldn't just like fisticuff her way out. You know,
Yes.
we needed to be sure that we knew that she knew that she had to be smart about this.
Yeah, it definitely amps things up for the, the last third of the film, let's say.
Yeah, the stakes are high because she can't make afford to make a mistake.
Mm. So that worked very, very well. Right. There were a few moments where I was just like, like there's a bit where she screams
Yep.
with the injection, and I was kind of like, because I'm like, she probably injects herself all the time.
Well, the difference is with that one is the emergency. So if you recall, there's a point in the car where she takes the little orange case out, and it's her
Mm.
emergency. It's her emergency, and that is actually a real thing. That's like an actual real thing, and you're supposed to. It's not a simple little. That is not her usual insulin. That is her like, I'm going to go into a coma insulin. So it's a bigger needle, and you kind of. It's not quite as severe as like a EpiPen, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like you have. It's not a simple. It's not a tiny little needle either. It was like it's like that was a real like what you see in the movie is actually what somebody would do in a diabetic emergency with that emergency kit. There's like a liquid, and then there's the glucose and the other thing, and you mix them and you shake them, and then you put them in this syringe that has a fair sized needle, and you're supposed to get it right in there. Like it's not like a little like a regular insulin needle, which are very tiny. So that was the deal there.
Okay. Yeah, because with that scene, I wasn't sure because it was in the dark and everything like that. And as I
Mm.
said, like I can't see for shit.
Right,
So
right.
I wasn't it's like, I wasn't sure if I missed something or you know what I mean,
Yeah.
something had happened, but I was a bit like, why she scream? But yeah, I was like, did something else happen that I didn't see? You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
that was the idea. Like that was not her typical. That was not her, she doesn't, and she does it in her leg, not in her tummy.
Yeah.
So it is a different thing. Also, she at that point she was delusional, and so you know she wasn't at her best. She was close to passing out. So it was just
Mm.
all bad news altogether. It's a
Oh,
bad news moment.
I did. Yeah, I love that delusional moment you threw in there. I thought
Mhm.
that was really good
Oh, great.
because yeah, you're like, you know what it is, but you're just like, oh yeah, because it's also that thing of the inner voice saying the thing and the thing saying the thing, and it's just like, yeah, I just thought that
It,
visualization.
yeah, I wanted the viewer to see her working out her problem. So I just did it in a way where she was kind of like manifesting something in her brain to, you know. So it
Mm,
just that was the idea. Like I wanted to see the viewer to see her work out the math in her head about how what she had to do next
yeah,
to succeed. So yeah.
no, yeah, I enjoyed that, man. I enjoyed that a lot. Did you
Okay.
storyboard this or?
No, no, I didn't. I didn't have the money for that. And also, again, because I'm a pretty experienced director, I just made sure to have my shot list. And again, like because we're moving so fast, there would have been times where I had to just like switch what I had to do just because maybe I was running out of time and I'd do this instead and it still worked, but it, you know, so I just had a shot list that I was crossing off. And because I, you know, obviously had scouted the location and I knew where everything was going to happen. So a lot of it was kind of free form, like, okay, we're going to put the camera right here. And, you know, and dude would stand with the camera there because again, very not a lot of tripods in this movie. So we were able to move pretty quickly. So that was the idea. And a lot of yeah, we had a lot of single shots that lasted a while.
Mm, okay. All right, man. No,
Yeah.
that's man, it's really that this is the thing I love about these conversations. You get so much insight into the process, right? Because what you watch for, 80 minutes, someone who's spent so much time putting together. So there's those moments that you think is just like, oh yeah, that was good, or oh, what was that choice about? And then you hear like why that thing happened. You're like, oh, that's so fascinating. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's enjoyable, man.
Well, that's why you do this podcast.
Indeed.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
man. Yeah, because you get you as I say, you guys spend so much time doing something. And I've said it so many times, but I would just get so frustrated with like interviews that I'd see on TV that were like this 5 minute little piece. And they'd be like, "So James, tell us, oh, you've got a new film out. That's fantastic. What did you have for breakfast, James?" And you'd be like, "Oh, Rice Krispie. Oh, that's so good." And then it's just like, "Well, that was James." And you're just like, "Wait,
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the film." Like,
Yeah, it's just to get you the title of the film in your brain. So when you go to the cinema or you flip on Netflix, you're like, "Oh, that's the title that I heard that guy who eats cereal. I better watch that." It's just brand recognition. So that's why podcasts are cool. You
yeah,
get to actually
because
talk. So
yeah,
um,
give something that chance to breathe. You know what I mean?
agreed. Yeah,
That's the
agreed.
important thing.
Yeah, and hopefully people get a bit more insight if they decide to watch a movie, or if they've already seen it, maybe they'll get more from it having listened to this.
Yeah, and if you meet like sometimes you hear someone's thoughts on something, you'd be like, I missed it. So you go back and you'll watch it and you'll be like, oh god damn, yeah, that's so good. Right. So it's just I think these things can work on so many different levels, which is fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Like I love listening to. There's different kinds of podcasts I'll listen to about film. There's but in all, I what's most important to me is I'm just learning something I didn't know already, and sometimes I'll even, as a Criterion Channel stream subscriber, I'll put on a commentary of a film that I've seen before as a podcast, and just listen to the
Mm,
commentary of the film for fun, just to learn things that I didn't know. And there's a rep cinema near my house that shows called the Review Cinema. Big shots like Guillermo del Toro love this theater when he shoots in Toronto, and what's great about this theater is it's a tiny little theater, just like the Port when I was a kid. It's a tiny little theater you go to, and they'll actually have people before and after the film talk about what you've just seen. They'll set up little
mm,
programs, and so it is always so good to have context. And we saw Memories of Murder recently, and it's a Korean film, and somebody came in before the film to talk about Korean history, and it made the film so much better to understand about. So you know what? Long live the podcast, long live the film podcast. It just makes the films better as far as I'm concerned.
oh, for sure. Yeah, no, that sounds fantastic.
Mhm.
Is like getting that kind of history, that little knowledge before you ingest something is gonna really just enhance your viewing experience. Is
Agreed.
I love that
Agreed.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, hopefully that's what we're doing now.
yeah, well,
So,
yeah, hopefully. I mean,
yeah.
with because back in the day, right, you'd have the extras on the video on the
Yeah.
DVD. So now digitally, you don't always get that.
No, that's disappointing. It's easy enough for there to be alternate tracks. I mean, I think you get them when you buy stuff, but I'd love it if when I rented a film digitally that I would have that, because I would watch, I would love that. But like I said, I mean, I have friends who are huge uh physical media collectors, so if I really need to, I can always hit their library.
Yeah. Did you record any like bonus stuff with
Not for
this?
this. I don't think the company who owns it is going to go to that extent. I don't think they're going to do a physical media. But if for anybody who likes a vicious fun, I did record with the filmmakers something for the DVD, a commentary for the DVD. So that was fun.
Ah, oh, that's cool. I
Yeah,
didn't. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I
I don't know if
just
it's available in the UK, but the Blu-ray is available in North America. But
okay.
yeah, that was fun. That's the only time I've ever done that. That was pretty fun.
Mm. Yeah, no, I enjoyed. I spoke to Cody about the Oak Room, and
Oh,
so
Cody. In fact, Cody just texted me a minute ago about something we're working on. He's a
oh,
good friend,
great.
and I love him. So yeah, people see Cody. People go see Cody's movies. Oak Room, Vicious Fun. Those are my two faves. You know, there's a few more on the list there. So
Mm. Yeah, I think he had something last year that I was trying to work something out for, but I wasn't able to. But yeah, no.
there's too many movies. There's
Oh,
too many movies.
Jesus, so many.
Yeah.
It's so
Actually,
difficult.
the film last year was actually Chad's, his partner, I think. Uh, It Feeds. I don't know if that's
Right.
the one you're thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. That's it. Uh, oh man, yeah, so many. Because yeah, there's pins and needles, right? It's
Yes,
out now, right?
it is. Yeah. You can
Yes.
rent that sucker digitally, watch it on a big TV. You know, have your friends over. Hopefully, you enjoy it. And if you don't, well, I can't help you, but hopefully you're into it. And I think it's pretty fun, and it's a quick ride. It's like an amusement ride. You get on there, and it's like a roller coaster. You cannot get off halfway through. You got to finish that sucker.
Indeed. But what's that response been like?
Overall, the reviews are good. I'm not super self-conscious or like sensitive, so overall, I'd say the reviews are good. I literally laughed out loud at one of the bad reviews. It was amazing. I think the pull quote was something like, "James Villeneuve shows what not to do when you do your first feature," or something like that. I burst out laughing. God, that was funny. But you know, whatever. Like, hey, you didn't like it. What are you going to do? You can't make everybody happy. So I'm not too worried about that. What I am happy about is the people who do enjoy it seem to get it. um that's, you know, that's the most you can hope for. Nobody's 100% of people aren't going to like what you do, but the people who do like it, if they get what you were trying for, then that's really satisfying. So that's where I'm at.
Mm. No, as I said, for me, it didn't feel like it was a first feature. It felt like it's someone that's been, probably like their 10th. Like, you know what I mean? You've
Oh,
been in the
thanks.
game doing your thing, right? It just looked so, and it was interesting because of 28 years later, I went back and rewatched the first two, which I
Mhm.
hadn't seen in forever. And the first film looks so crazy. It looks like it
Uh,
was a
it was
Betamax.
shot on it was shot on digital video. It was shot on the little Panasonic digital video cameras at the time. And yeah, it's fascinating that he did that. He decided he wanted to be able to work with 6 or 7 or 8 cameras at the same time, and bring his budget way down, and he wanted to have a certain look, and so he took a huge swing, and he basically kickstarted the modern zombie renaissance, really.
Mm,
So
really? Yeah.
yeah, I love that. I'm a big fan of that. Alex Garland wrote that. I'm a big fan of Alex Garland. And I think that film has a heavy influence from this science fiction writer that I love. Uh, oh my God, I'm blanking. The guy who wrote The Chrysalids. Why am I blanking? I have these books. By the way, everybody should know I blank on the names of famous filmmakers and authors. John Wyndham. John Wyndham is the name.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
famous UK author. I think
Mm.
a real trailblazer in science fiction. And yeah, so I'm a big fan of that. 28 Days Later. That the opening of that film starts exactly like Day of the Triffids.
It's so good. And the crazy thing is, right? It looks, as I say, it looks like a Betamax, right? But that's
Doesn't
kind of
matter.
perfect for
Yeah,
what it is because it
exactly.
kind of makes you feel like you found this footage in a, oh my
Vault.
god, what do you got, the things that you bury and you dig up and
Yeah,
you
time capsule.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
time
it.
capsule. Yeah.
Yes, it feels like time capsule footage of this whole disaster that happened. So it kind of is kind of perfect in that grainy kind of effect that you have with it now, you know?
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Like, do you have your next project? Do you have an idea of what might come next? What genre?
Um,
What are we doing?
I have a couple of screenplay. I have a few screenplays written down. I'm just starting a new one soon, and they tend to, just because of my interests, they tend to have a genre bent to them. It's just kind of what I enjoy. So nothing really to say other than they're written, and I'm working with people to try and get them done. So at some point when the next one happens, I'm sure we'll chat about it. But like, yeah, no big announcements or anything. I wish I had a big announcement, but I don't.
Hey, no, the good thing is that you're working on new stuff. I mean, that's always you know what I mean? I don't ever expect you to be like, yeah, I'm working on a new James Bond, right? Or anything
Yeah, yeah,
like that. But
that's
it's
right.
just like, it's always just good to know that there's gonna be something else coming soon. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
man. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, no, man. As I say, I honestly really did enjoy this, right? It
Thank
is,
you.
you watch so many different films, and there's some that, yeah, I don't love, right? But
Yeah,
they're not made for me. So it's all gravy, you know what I mean?
yeah, exactly.
And even some of the things I do not love, there's parts of that that I'm like, oh, the score was fantastic, or like these actors just killed it, or there's always a something that you gravitate to. But when something you just really do enjoy it, right? Like
Yeah,
it's always a genuine thing that it is
yeah.
honestly really enjoyed the heck out of it. So
Oh,
fantastic
thank
job with pins and needles, man. I'm
thank you
so
so
glad
much,
you
man.
sent that
I, I
through.
I really appreciate it. Thank you. That's nice to hear that you're excited about it. And I feel like because of what your podcast is, you wouldn't be chatting with me if you didn't enjoy it. So like, much appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's only been I think like a couple of occasions where I've had the conversation, but it's just because it was arranged before because of time
Right.
and
Right.
everything.
Right.
Right? You
Right.
just
Right.
have to be like, all right, I've got a window next week. Let's just arrange it now, right? You know,
Right.
because also I don't want to watch the film and then talk to the person like a week later. I always
Right.
want it to
Right.
be fresh. So, you know, I watched Pins and Needles earlier today, right? So
Great.
then everything's fresh in the mind and we can talk about all the little nitty gritty and the details and the minutiae and just all of that. So
Oh,
it's,
great.
yeah, a couple of times, you know, but they were still good conversations because it's just talking about the process and what that person created. And just because it didn't work for me doesn't mean it's not going to work for everyone.
Well,
Because
that's life. I mean, that's just life. Everybody's got their
yeah,
interests. Everybody's got
exactly.
their, yeah.
I mean,
That's how I
I
feel.
don't like ET, but for some reason the rest of the world does.
That's crazy to me. You're a crazy man. Yeah, I'm on a podcast with a crazy person. I just realized. So, but that's fine. Some people need to be crazy, and you're crazy. You don't like ET. Okay, fine
Oh
with
man,
that.
like
I'm fine with
so
that. We can
many,
still be friends. We can still be friends. I have a crazy friend now.
just so many of those early 80s films. I just didn't, for whatever reason, I don't like the Goonies. Um,
The Goonies is okay, but you have to be a young kid to enjoy that. I don't, as an adult, I don't think it hits. It doesn't hit for me. But
mm,
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, but
yeah,
then you have like some magic, like you know, Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger and Jason and the
yeah.
Argonauts and things like that, which are just pure gold, pure gold. Yeah.
Agreed. 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 Agreed.
Cool.
So, but I mean, like I said, you just got to find what you like, and you just got to just be happy with it and enjoy it and share it with friends. And it's fun if you disagree with your friends. I love chatting with my friends who don't like the same movies. It's great.
Oh, for sure. And also, sometimes there's been times when people have been like, no, that like the film because it does this and this. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give it a second chance. And I watch it
Yeah,
again. I'm like, you know what? I must have just been having a bad day because I did really enjoy the fuck out of it. So there are times when, you know, I have changed my
yeah.
mind on things.
Well, I'm glad you're having a good day. For mine. Yes.
Oh man, yeah, no, Pins and Needles is fantastic, people. So make sure you go and check it out. All the links for the film are on the website. So yeah, go do that. How can people keep track of you and everything you're doing, James?
You know what's funny about that? Here's a confession for you. I made a decision to not be on social media. I think overall it's paid off for my brain. But yeah, I so you know what? Just keep an eye out on IMDb. I have a website that I occasionally, very rarely update, but I promise you that next movie's coming. So
Okay.
just be patient.
Awesome,
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, I'll wait for Ted or whoever else to hit me up or just yeah, just message me. Send me a message
absolutely,
and let me
absolutely will. You're
know.
on the list.
Yeah,
you're on the list. If some news happening, you're gonna find out about it, Kevin.
tremendous. James, this has been just a straight pleasure, man. I've enjoyed
Thanks,
the
man.
heck out of this. I really appreciate you giving me your time.
Anytime, honestly. I'm so happy. I'm glad we could have a chat. It was good just chatting about movies. Honestly, I had such a good time. So, and I would do this again. So I'm going to try and get that movie done so that we can do this again.
Awesome. Awesome. And is there a movie you're looking forward to seeing coming up?
Oh, I'm so bad at that. I'm going to hang up with you and then I'm going to be like, oh, I should have said that movie. Right? Like that's kind of where
Oh yeah,
I'm.
no, all the
Yeah,
time.
that's
All the
so
time.
I'm so bad at instant recall. Like I forgot the name of one of my favorite authors just a few minutes ago. So I can't. And then I'll know what I should have said in a half hour from now. So I'm so sorry.
No, no,
I'm so
that
sorry.
hey, the only reason I remember this film because I saw something about it literally just before I jumped on, and it's the new Nolan film, The Odyssey.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm
I'm
sure that's
looking
gonna be cool.
forward.
I mean, I respect the heck out of that guy. So like, yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
There's I feel for me, The Return was the first film, like the first big feature film, I should say, that I was really like, oh yeah, that was good. This year it was The Return, and then I think a week later Sinners came out. But those were the first. Like I'd seen some films that from the studios. I thought that yeah, that was good, but nothing had blown me away until The Return and then Sinners. But
Right,
on the
right.
indie front, there'd been a lot of things. But yeah, from the big studios, The Return was the first thing. So I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to getting back to the old Trojan War and everything.
Yeah, no kidding. It's gonna be interesting to see his take on it. And I love Ray Fiennes is one of my favorite actors, so it's cool.
Mm.
I'm thinking of the. Sorry, there's another one that he was in. The Ray Fiennes was in
He was The Return.
recently. The Return. That was the Return.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So this Odyssey, I don't know who's in it, but
I mean,
I think it's gonna be cool.
everyone. Like
Everyone, yeah.
Charlie.
At this point, anybody will be in his movies. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like all the people that usually work with Nolan, most of them are in it. Like Tom
yeah.
Holland's in it. Zananda. I can never.
Zendaya,
Okay, yeah, I
Zendaya, yeah,
always fluff on that name,
yeah,
man. But yeah, she's
yeah,
in it. Charlize Theron. Just so many people. It's
yeah,
man. I hope it's good. I hope
yeah.
it's good.
I'm sure it will be.
But yeah, looking forward to that one. But
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks so much, man. Honestly, thanks for your time and thanks for all the. It's. I know it's really hard work to do a podcast, so thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, no worries, man. Just keep making great films so
Yeah.
I have things to talk about. You know what
Awesome. I
I mean?
promise I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
Outstanding, man. Hey, congratulations on Pins and Needles. It was magnificent. It was a
Thank you, man.
fantastic first film, and I know you're gonna be someone to look out for coming for you know what I mean going forward with features and all of that jazz. So yeah, man. Good luck with everything you do in the future.
Thanks, Kevin. I really appreciate it. Honestly, you too.
No worries, man. Take it easy.